This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
We're working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. We're coming to you live from Manila and Thailand. Hello, Gila.
Hello, good afternoon to you, Alma, and good afternoon to all our viewers. I'm Gila Pablo, your EBC correspondent, bringing you the latest news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines, President Duterte will participate in the high-level general debate of the 76th session of the UN General Assembly or UNGA on September 21 to the 27th.
Tinatanggap ko po.
Philippine boxer turned politician Manny Pacquiao declared he will run for president in 2022, ending months of speculation about whether the legendary fighter would seek the country's top job.
Yes, posible.
The National Task Force Against COVID-19 spokesperson Restituto Padilla said a 2-week extension of the implementation of COVID-19 Alert Level 4 in the National Capital Region may be possible depending on the result of the policy's pilot implementation.
And the red-clad protesters drove through Bangkok streets on Sunday to mark the 15-year anniversary of a military coup ousting former Premier Thaksin Shinawatra, an event which has reverberated through Thailand's political landscape.
President Duterte will participate in the high-level general debate of the 76th session of the UN General Assembly. This will be on September 21 to the 27th. This will be Duterte's second attendance to the high-level general debate of the international body. He first addressed the UNGA last year. The Office of the President said among topics that will be addressed are Philippine positions on global issues of key concern, namely universal access to COVID-19 vaccines, climate change, human rights, including the situation of migrant workers and refugees, and international and regional security developments. The UNGA is the main deliberating organ of the UN, where all the 193 member states are represented. The session's theme this year is, quote, building resilience through hope to recover from COVID-19, rebuild sustainably, respond to the needs of the planet, respect the rights of the people, and revitalize the United Nations. During the 75th session of the UNGA in September 2020, the President stressed that access to safe and effective vaccines should be made available to all rich and poor nations alike. He also said the COVID-19 vaccine must be considered a global public good, in joining the collective voice of partners in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, and the Non-Aligned Movement, or NAM.
Philippine boxer turned politician Manny Pacquiao declared he will run for president in 2022, ending months of speculation about whether the legendary fighter would seek the country's top job. Let's watch this.
Tinatanggap ko po ang inyong nominasyon sa akin bilang kandidato sa pagkapangulo ng Republika ng Pilipinas. Inip na ang taong bayan, nagtatanong, kailan ba matatapos ang kanilang paghihirap? The time is now Ngayon na ang panahon. We are ready to rise to the challenge of leadership. Alam niyo po ba ang pakiramdam ng isang Pilipino na nakipaglaban sa boxing, nagpapabugbog sa kalabang mas malaki at mas malakas para makabili ng pagkain. Ang Manny Pacquiao na nasa harapan ninyo ngayon ay pinanday ng hirap. I am a fighter and I will always be a fighter inside and outside the ring. Sa buong buhay ko, wala akong laban na inaatrasan.
Mahirap ang kanyang pinagmulan, di bali ng napitin at durugin ng...
Pacquiao, who entered politics in 2010 as a congressman before being elected to the Senate, has long been expected to make a tilt for the country's highest office. His boxing credentials, along with fighting poverty and corruption, are the key themes of his campaign. Pacquiao's star power in a country famed for its celebrity-obsessed politics will put him in a strong position in the presidential race, but it will not guarantee victory. A public skirmish between Pacquiao and Duterte over the latter's handling of the South China Sea dispute with Beijing and official graft could erode support for the boxer. Duterte, who is allowed to serve only one term as president under the Constitution, rivals Pacquiao for the affections of many Filipinos and declared last month he will run for the vice presidency.
At sa lahat ng mga kababayan sa iba't ibang...
Meanwhile, the National Task Force against COVID-19 spokesperson Restituto Padilla said a 2-week extension of the implementation of COVID-19 Alert Level 4 in the National Capital Region, or NCR, may be possible depending on the result of the policy's pilot implementation. Let's listen in.
Yes, posible kasi pilot implementation lang ito. So, ibig sabihin, tinitingnan kung magiging epektibo at kung magkakaroon ng effect sa pagbaba ng mga kaso. Kung maganda ang magiging datos at ang resulta, maaaring implement sa mga ibang lugar o gawing malawakan ang implementasyon.
Alert level 4 with granular alert lockdowns, the second highest under the new quarantine system means case counts are high or increasing with COVID-19 beds and intensive care beds at increasing utilization rates. Saturday's new cases pushed the nationwide tally to 2,347,550, while active cases stood at 184,088. On Saturday, also last week, the DOH recorded an all-time high of 26,303 cases.
Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere said, contrary to the forecast of the independent Octa Research Group, the department does not yet see that cases in the National Capital Region have already peaked. Last Saturday, she said the number of COVID-19 cases in Metro Manila has even increased by 8% in the last 7 days. Let's watch this.
Based on the daily cases here in the National Capital Region and based on the assumptions or projections that we have for September 30, the cases may range from 16,000 to 43,000. And the assumptions include mobility, public health capacity and system, and yung adherence sa minimum public health standards. So kapag ka atin pong na-improve itong mga nakalagay na factors sa assumptions, we might not reach these numbers na sinasabi natin. Katulad nung nangyari dito sa NCR nung end of August, nagkaroon ng projection that we will reach about 80,000+ active cases by the end of August. Pero nakita natin na hindi ito narating o hindi natin nakuha o itong ganitong klase na numero dahil nakapag-improve naman tayo ng ating response dito sa COVID-19 considering these 3 factors that I have just mentioned. So hopefully, with what we are doing right now with this pilot implementation, we will not reach this kind of projections. Although katulad ng sabi ko, itong projections natin by the end of September 30, we might reach 16,000 to 43,000 number of cases pagdating po sa dulo ng Setyembre.
Meanwhile, Vergara said the new alert level system in Metro Manila is not meant to relax the restrictions, but to refocus the government's COVID-19 response.
Meanwhile, Vietnam has given emergency use approval for Cuba's Abdala COVID-19 vaccine. The VN Express news portal earlier reported that Vietnam's approval comes after the approval of this emergency use last July 9. For more details, we're joined live by Ralph Wandolph Empire. Hello, Ralph.
Hi there, Alma. That's right. But before that, let me say that there are some positive developments over the past few days here in Vietnam. As we know, 3 major cities in Vietnam, Hanoi, Da Nang, and Ho Chi Minh City, were in a strict lockdown since May. It has been 4 months. But in the capital city, Hanoi, just a few days ago, authorities have allowed food takeaway services and other shops to reopen in safe districts. They have eased the restrictions and removed checkpoints from different areas. In Ho Chi Minh City, authorities have also reopened other businesses' activities, including postal services, computer stores, stationery stores, as well as restaurants and coffee shops for delivery. A lot of people, locals and foreigners, got tested and vaccinated in Hanoi, which administered almost 1 million vaccine shots in 2 days, 6.1 million in Ho Chi Minh City, and 684,000 doses in Da Nang. Here in Da Nang, Alma, we are getting back to normal since September 18. Da Nang did not record any new COVID cases. The local government has lifted the lockdown on September 16. Although there are still some restrictions, residents can finally go out. Stores and public places have reopened. It is evident that the tough antivirus measures across the city have been effective and produced positive signs in the fight against COVID-19. The municipal administration and local residents have worked extremely hard to achieve success in tackling COVID-19. Da Nang, however, will continue to roll out mass community testing and mass vaccinations across the city. In fact, yesterday, Da Nang received an additional 140,400 doses of COVID-19 vaccine from the Ministry of Health. The Municipal People's Committee Chairman, Mr. Chin, said given the fact that the virus has been brought under control, the Da Nang government has outlined 3 plans for the city's transition to a new normal. The first normalization scheme will see additional restrictions to be dropped. The second one will allow all activities and services to resume operations, except for such services as karaoke bars, massage parlors, which pose higher risk of spreading the virus. And the last one will deploy COVID-19 pass scheme, Mr. Chin remarked. The third option will allow the use of COVID-19 vaccination cards to enter venues and events in Da Nang. Yellow cards will be issued to people who have received a first dose of a COVID-19 vaccine, while green ones will be granted for those who have been fully vaccinated. The city will deploy a green pass scheme for fully vaccinated status and recent recovery from coronavirus, therefore calling for effective information management in fully vaccinated people and recoveries to support the city's new scheme. Meanwhile, in Ho Chi Minh City, the health department has suggested that the green pass is given to all vaccinated people, including those who have only got 1 shot. It has also said that all pass holders should be required to follow coronavirus restrictions and regular tests. The proposal submitted on Saturday by the department to the city's steering committee for COVID-19 prevention and control says people who have had 1 COVID-19 vaccine shot at least 2 weeks prior and COVID-19 cases who have completed their quarantine periods should be granted the passes that aim to foster and expedite economic recovery. However, even green pass holders would still have to abide by coronavirus control measures like wearing masks and keeping distances and take regular COVID-19 tests, the proposal says. In other news, the Ministry of Health on Friday granted emergency approval of Cuba's Abdala COVID-19 vaccine. Cuba approved emergency use of the Abdala vaccine on July 9 after its manufacturers announced in June that the vaccine was more than 92% effective when 3 doses were given. Abdala has made the 8th COVID-19 vaccine approved for emergency use in Vietnam aside from AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, Pfizer, Sputnik V, Sinopharm, and UAE's Hayat Vax. Up to date, more than 33 million of the nation's 96 million population have been vaccinated, with over 6.18 million getting 2 doses. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Ralph, for that update, and looking forward to more updates coming out of Vietnam. Stay safe.
Reporting live from Da Nang, Vietnam, I am Ralph Pandok Anpai. We live in interesting times.
Cambodia begins inoculating children as young as 6 against the coronavirus. Even though the World Health Organization has yet to approve a vaccine for under 12 years old. The grandchildren of Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen and other government officials were among the first youngsters to receive the Chinese Sinovac jab. Let's watch this.
Okay, camera. Nếu mà ôm thôi. Okay, Chanvi.
Hai mình tới chất tốt thà ní chỉ ca rốt bản năng lỡ bà nhà hoa sang thế. Tại Campuchia trời miên cả tập bằng cách ca bia chỉ vứt bồ rọt ra bọc luôn. Hai miên cả tập bằng cách đảm bay thua hơi. Sở cung sẽ được cách trời bàn ra là nghịch. Khổng đồng rộp tiếng vì say họp rung.
Now, the Philippines, one of the world's biggest exporters of healthcare workers, is also facing a shortage of nurses willing to work in its hospitals as the country battles record coronavirus infections. In a public hospital in Binyan City in Laguna, near Manila, a car park was already turned into a COVID ward and tents were set up to treat many of the patients. Many of the nurses also are sick or in quarantine. Take a look.
Nung nag-umpisa po ito nung umpisa ay sa loob lang po ng ospital ginagawa ang mga COVID patient doon po. Pero ito pong pumasok po itong panibagong surge na ito. Ayan po, naglagay na po tayo ng tent na pwedeng mag-accommodate ng around 30 to 40 patients. Sumunod po doon, nandito na rin po sa parking lot yung mga pasyente na kung saan sila po yung mga pasyente na wala nang mapuntahan or wala nang malipatan. Sa ngayon po, yung bilang ng nurses namin ay kinakapos dahil marami na po sa aming mga nurses ang nagkakasakit at naka-quarantine. Hindi lang po nurses, ultimo doktor at mga administrative staff. So,
Wala ka pang panlasa ngayon?
kapos po kami. Kulang po kami ng tao. Kagaya ng
Una po,
totoo lang po na mapagod kami, natural lang po na mahirapan. Pero lagi po naming nasa isip dito, kailangan po nating tumulong. Kailangan po nating damayan ng ating mga kababayan dahil wala naman na pong ibang tutulong pa eh.
They're always saying nurses, doctors, health workers, frontline are heroes because they see that we're going to work, taking care of the patient, taking care of the people. But still, we are not paid properly. Our benefits were not be given on time. And we are already so tired doing our work. Our morale is so down. At times, we are still coming to work because we need to help the patients, we need to help the people.
Many hospitals boosted their bed capacity after a virus surge earlier this year threatened to overwhelm them. Official data show coronavirus ward and ICU bed occupancy rates at more than 70% nationwide, as daily cases often exceed 20,000, fueled by the hyper-contagious Delta variant.
Una po ay nagtrabaho. The Philippine National Police, or PNP, has recorded no new deaths among its ranks, and 324 of its personnel have recovered from the coronavirus. Latest data posted on its Facebook Monday show that since the pandemic started last year, 35,807 police personnel have recovered from the illness. 2,412 are tagged as active cases, 125 are new ones, while deaths remain at 113. The PNP's total number of coronavirus cases since last year is now 38,332. Based on the PNP data, as of September 18, more than 131,000 police personnel have been fully protected with the required 2 doses, and more than 80,000 have taken their first dose.
And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. Gila and I will be back right after this break.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Your weekly dose of entrepreneurial inspiration to update you on the latest developments in the world of business. Get up close and personal with CEOs and thought leaders to help you discover valuable insights. Sharpen your instincts for smart decision-making with the latest markets and economic trends, disruptive ideas, global innovation, social entrepreneurship, and other leading-edge business ideas. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business, from vision to action.
Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus. Hundreds of red-clad protesters drove through Bangkok's streets on Sunday to mark the 15-year anniversary of a military coup ousting former Premier Thaksin Shinawatra, an event which has reverberated through Thailand's political landscape. Here's Veronica Carino, our EBC Thailand correspondent. Veronica.
Yes, good afternoon, Gila, and to all of our viewers. Yes, at the peak of Karma rally that began hours earlier at the Sok intersection yesterday, pro-democracy protesters wrapped Bangkok's Democracy Monument in a black sheet draped with images of Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha. But first, let's listen in.
เข้าสู่อำนาจเข้าสู่สนามทางการเมืองนะครับแล้วก็เข้าไปเบียดบังกระแสและระบอบประชาธิปไตยทำให้ประชาธิปไตยนั้นถดถอยมีการจับคนไปขังมีการไล่ล่าจนคนไทยด้วยกันต้องลี้ภัยทั้งหมดทั้งหลายเพื่อให้ได้ประยุทธ์จันทร์โอชาเป็นนายกรัฐมนตรีวันนี้นี่คือความอัปยศที่สุดของแผ่นดิน
The
officials gathered at Bangkok's Sept intersection for a key rally commemorating the September 19, 2006 coup, which protest leaders claim paved the way for Prime Minister Prayut power. More than 1,000 cars, motorcycles, and other vehicles took off in a heavy rain from a Sept intersection, the start of the car mob rally that will wind through the streets of Bangkok in another attempt to depose Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha. The protest coincided with the 15th anniversary of the September 19, 2006 coup that deposed then Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra. That was followed by the coup on May 22, 2014, which marked the start of General Prayut Chan-o-cha's premiership. The two coups were linked, Red Shirt leader Natawut Saipuwar said before the rally began. The 2014 coup was staged to show that the 2006 coup was not a waste of effort by the army, he explained. According to the Red Shirt activist Sombat Bungam Anong, the armed forces justified military coups as a means of resolving political conflicts, but in reality, military intervention was used to allow generals to enter politics. The political convoy began with a long procession of about 500 cars and more than 1,000 motorcycles heading over the Sept Bridge to Thonburi and then recrossing the Chao Phraya River to the end at Democracy Monument. The rally began with a dramatic piece of symbolism, while demonstrators chanted for General Prayut's ouster, Mr. Natawut. Dressed in a taxi uniform, rammed a taxi into a cardboard mock-up of a tank. The stunt was reminiscent of a taxi driver, Nuam Thong Praiwan, who spray painted his vehicle with an anti-coup message and smashed into an army tank on September 30, 2006 to protest the coup. Mr. Natawut stated that the rally on Sunday would send a clear message that the military coups must end and that General Prayut must step down. General Prayut rose to the power, but he has not solved problems, he claimed. The Red Shirt leader admitted that the political battle against the prime minister would be long as the COVID-19 outbreak hampered large crowds. He claimed that the COVID-19 obstruct calls for large rallies. Mr. Natawut stated at the rally's conclusion at Democracy Monument that the protesters would not relent in their demand for General Prayut to resign. Mr. Sombat claimed that Thailand was regressing 15 years after the 2006 coup. And for a quick update, Thailand recorded 12,709 new COVID-19 cases and 106 new fatalities in the previous 24 hours, according to the Public Health Ministry on Sunday morning. There were 11,851 cases in the general population and 858 cases in the inmates in prison. This update is from Bangkok Post. Back to you, Gila.
Thank you so much, Veronica, for that update, and stay safe always.
Thank you. And likewise, reporting live from Thailand, I am Veronica Carino, and we live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, school children around the world have lost an estimated 1.8 trillion hours and counting of in-person learning since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent lockdowns. As a result, young learners have been cut off from their education and the other vital benefits schools provide. To call attention to this education crisis, UNICEF unveiled No Time to Lose at the United Nations headquarters in New York. The centerpiece of the installation is a clock, modeled to look like the blackboard of an empty classroom situated at the UN Visitors Plaza in front of the General Assembly building. The clock is a real-time counter displaying the growing cumulative number of in-person learning hours every school child in the world has lost and continues to lose since the pandemic's onset. The empty classroom consists of 18 desks, one for every month of the pandemic-caused education disruptions. The installation will be up from September 15 or 17 rather, to September 27. Globally, around 131 million school children in 11 countries have missed 3/4 of their in-person learning from March 2020 to September 2021.
Meanwhile, Philippine National Police Chief General Guillermo Elizar on Sunday directed the Police Regional Office, Bangsamoro Autonomous Region, to conduct a thorough investigation into the explosion in Maguindanao that left 8 people injured. Elizar also instructed the local police to coordinate with the military in identifying and arresting the perpetrators of the attack. Reports reaching the PNP chief's office indicated that the blast happened while a volleyball game was ongoing in a covered court in Dato Piang Town Center on Saturday afternoon. No one was reported killed in the incident. Authorities are still validating if the suspects had used a phone-triggered improvised explosive device in the attack. Elizar, meanwhile, called on residents in the area to immediately report to authorities if they noticed any actions that could pose threats in the community, noting that information from citizens has been helpful for the police in preventing atrocities.
In other news, the leader of an Islamic State-linked militant network in Indonesia was killed in a shootout with security forces, according to police on Sunday. Ali Kalora, head of the East Indonesia Mujahideen, or MIT, was shot dead Saturday in Sulawesi Island's jungle, along with another member identified as Jaka Ramadan. Police said they've launched a manhunt for 4 more MIT militants. The weekend firefight took place 2 months after authorities shut down 2 suspected members of the group in the same Parigi Mutong district near the extremist hotbed Poso district. Designated a terrorist organization by the United States, MIT is among dozens of radical groups across the Southeast Asian archipelago that have pledged allegiance to ISIS. After hiding out in the jungles of Sulawesi for years, the network is now estimated to have just a handful of members, but it has been accused of plotting several deadly attacks, including most recently killing 4 farmers and reportedly beheading 1 in a remote village in May.
An Indonesian court has ruled in favor of environment campaigners that President Joko Widodo and other top officials had been negligent in protecting citizens, ordering the administration to clean up Jakarta's notorious air pollution.
Ya mungkin beda-beda tempat kali ya. Kalau daerah sini sih polusi kendaraan insya Allah aman gitu, nggak banyak asap kendaraan masih stabil lah gitu.
Terus kalau ada hakim tadi bikin keputusan seperti itu, mendukung atau biasa aja atau bagaimana?
Ya mendukung sih, cuma ya biar lebih bagus itu. Iya.
Mengenai polusi sangat terganggu, soalnya gimana ya? Kepadatan kendaraan lebih banyak, jadikan macet, polusinya tidak bagus.
The capital and its surroundings form a megacity of about 30 million people, which routinely ranks among the most polluted cities in the world. Experts have warned for years about the threat posed by Jakarta's smog to the health of residents, especially children. A group of 32 activists and citizens impacted by pollution had filed the lawsuit 2 years ago, accusing Widodo, as well as his ministers for health, home and environment, and the governor of Jakarta, of negligence over the state of the city's environment. The officials were found to have violated the law, presiding Judge Saifuddin Zudi of the Central Jakarta District Court said, ordering them to tighten environmental regulations and enforcement. They asked the officials to especially crack down on the pollution generated by vehicles and the coal-fired power plants around Jakarta, including with sanctions for violations. The judges also told authorities to improve air monitoring systems and make pollution data public. The petitioners had not asked the court for any monetary compensation.
Meanwhile, the government-led rehabilitation efforts in Marawi City is already 80% complete. That according to the Task Force Bangon Marawi or TFPM chairperson and Housing Czar Eduardo Del Rosario yesterday. Now, despite the challenges posed by the health crisis and inclement weather, Del Rosario assured all infrastructure projects will be done according to the timeline of completion. Marawi's Master Development Plan will be finished within the term of President Duterte, Del Rosario assured. More than 600 permanent shelters have been completed, 300 of which are now occupied by residents displaced by the 2017 siege between government forces and terrorists affiliated with ISIS. Among the completed infrastructure projects outside Marawi's most affected areas are the 19-kilometer Trans-Central roads, Lilod Gimba Bangolo, and Mapandi Bridges, Central Fire Station, Phase 1, fully equipped Roro Gagus Health Station, and improvement of road networks in Pantar Marawi and Maul Maranto.
Because of postage costs, the Commission on Election is bracing for a lower turnout of voters abroad who will be sending their ballots via mail in the 2022 elections. All officials said this will be the likely outcome since COMELEC will no longer be able to pay for the postage stamps necessary for overseas absentee voters or OAV to resend their ballots after the Department of Budget and Management slashed their proposed 2022 budget. In a television interview last week, COMELEC Chairman Sheriff Abbas said they asked for 150 million pesos to provide for the free stamps, but it was rejected by BBM. COMELEC spokesperson James Jimenez said they now anticipate a 30 to 40% decline in the number of male voters in the elections next year. There are currently about 1.4 million registered overseas absentee voters.
Staying in the country, the Philippines received an additional 3 million doses of government-procured Sinovac COVID-19 vaccines on Sunday. Take a look. Now, the Chinese-manufactured vaccines landed at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport or NAIA Terminal 2 at around 6 p.m. According to the National Task Force Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer Secretary Carlito Galvez, the new batch of vaccines has yet to receive its certificate of analysis as they are newly procured vaccines. Also, another 2,020,590 doses of Pfizer COVID-19 vaccines from the COVAX facility are expected to arrive at NAIA Terminal 3 that arrives at NAIA Terminal 3 Sunday around midnight. Galvez further added that about 20 million individuals may be fully vaccinated by the end of September. Meanwhile, data from the latest COVID-19 vaccine inventory released on Saturday, September 18, showed that the country has already received a total of 59,359,810 COVID-19 vaccine doses.
Stay for more news. Alma and I will be back after this break.
July, there was no need to hide or shy away from.
Hello po, ako si Bianca at may tuto pa rin po akong isang letter sender request ngayong linggo, September 26 sa Letters and Music from 1 to 2 p.m. Dito lamang sa Net 25. See you!
10th of July.
Welcome back. Local carriers have urged the government to ease mobility for vaccinated Filipinos to spur travel demand and to help the airlines recoup their losses due to the pandemic. Now, in a Business Mirror report, a joint statement was sent to the media by Philippine Airlines or PAL aviation players, Cebu Pacific and AirAsia, and said that they have met with the Department of Health Advisor Edsel Salvana, with Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship, Joey Concepcion, to air their concerns about the industry. Among these rules that they hope can be done away with are the multiple requirements for traveling, especially for domestic destinations, and expensive testing, as most destinations require an RT-PCR test, and the long quarantines for arriving passengers from international flights. PAL said in a statement that, quote, travelers consider requirements such as testing and the quarantine periods very burdensome to put off their travel plans. The airline also proposed a new protocol to reduce risk and cost to passengers of international flights. Under Philippine Airlines proposal, passengers will be tested 72 hours before departure and will undergo quarantine upon arrival and take an RT-PCR test on the third day. If the result is negative, they can go out of the quarantine facility on the fifth day and continue home quarantine. Based on the data presented testing before departure helps reduce positivity rate and risk. The proposal would also enable passengers to save as much as 25,000 pesos aside from enjoying a more comfortable quarantine in the comfort of their own home. Cebu Pacific Vice President Alex Reyes meanwhile added that the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases has to release specific guidelines for fully vaccinated Filipinos to travel locally. This, he said, will jumpstart tourism and economic activities in various destinations. For his part, meanwhile, AirAsia CEO Ricky Isla proposed the use of antigen testing if testing will still be required, as it is more convenient and cheaper. Meanwhile, work-related diseases and injuries were responsible for the deaths of 1.9 million people in 2016. That according to the first joint estimates from the World Health Organization and the International Labor Organization. According to the WHO-ILO joint estimates of the work-related burden of disease and injury 2000 to 2016 global monitoring report, the majority of work-related deaths were due to respiratory and cardiovascular disease. Take a look.
Almost 2/3 of those deaths are due to 3 pairs of occupational risk factors and health outcome. One, they were caused by occupational exposure to air pollution, resulting in chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. That was responsible for 450,000 deaths. Exposure to long working hours and a stroke was responsible for 400,000 deaths. And exposure to long working hours causing ischemic heart disease was responsible for 346,000 deaths. Therefore, the single largest risk factor is exposure to long working hours. This is a fundamental change in what we are finding in these new estimates.
Africa, Southeast Asia, and the Western Pacific are most affected. And within these regions, we can also say that low and middle income countries are more affected than high income countries. And I think this points to your question also on more disadvantaged workers, specifically informal economy workers. So this is certainly part of the epidemiological explanation of why we see larger burden in these regions and then in low and middle income countries within the regions. Right? So informal economy workers probably work in jobs that have less protection and therefore are exposed to more occupational risk factors. Long working hours are now the single biggest occupational risk factor, and we only established this 3 months ago. right? So with our estimates in 2021, unbelievable indeed, we found the largest risk factor for work-related burden of disease. This completely changes our thinking of where the risk is and where we need to focus our action on. In that regard, I want to highlight exactly as you said, long working hours have been increasing as a response to COVID national lockdowns. We know that about 10% more people now work in long working hours, or working time has increased by 10% across North America, Europe, and the Middle East from a study from the National Bureau of Economic Research.
This first WHO-ILO joint global monitoring report will enable policymakers to track work-related health loss at country, regional, and global levels. Each risk factor has a unique set of preventive actions, which are outlined in the monitoring report to guide governments in consultation with employers and workers. For example, the prevention of exposure to long working hours requires agreement on healthy maximum limits on working time to reduce workplace exposure to air pollution. Dust control, ventilation, and personal protective equipment is recommended.
The Philippines has left a temporary import ban on Brazilian beef products, including live cattle, after the Latin American country reported an outbreak of atypical bovine spongiform encephalopathy, or BSE, or mad cow disease a few weeks ago. Agriculture Secretary William D. Dar issued on Thursday Memorandum Order 54, authorizing the temporary ban on the importation of live cattle, meat, and meat products derived from cattle from Brazil. With the order, the Bureau of Animal Industry has suspended the processing, evaluation of the application, and issuance of the sanitary and phytosanitary import clearance for Brazilian beef imports. The Philippine Association of Meat Processors Incorporated on Friday cautioned that the temporary blanket ban on Brazilian beef products would result in increase in the retail prices of processed goods, since the industry will be forced to utilize more expensive raw material from countries like Australia and the United States.
Meanwhile, the Department of Interior and Local Government, or DILG, warned that they will close down business establishments whose staff and employees are not yet inoculated with the COVID-19 vaccine. Take a look. Now, DILG Undersecretary Marty Dino said in a media forum on Sunday that unvaccinated staff can be carriers of COVID-19 to their customers. He added that the DILG may order dine-in restaurants and personal care services establishments with unvaccinated staff to stop operations. According to the DILG, it's monitoring businesses and permit offices of local government units.
Meanwhile, the Philippines has administered 41,247,552 doses of coronavirus disease 2019 or COVID-19 vaccines nationwide as of September 18. The National Task Force Against COVID-19 or NTF reported on Sunday. Based on the national COVID-19 vaccination dashboard data, there are 22,771,602 Filipinos who have received the first dose, while 18,475,950 are now fully protected against the dreaded disease. The average daily doses administered in the last 7 days stood at 374,612 doses. The Philippines' jabs stockpile has 59,359,810 doses, with an additional 3 million of Sinovac and 2,020,590 Pfizer vaccines to be delivered on Sunday night. In an interview over the weekend, Vaccine Czar and NTF Chief Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. said the government aims to fully vaccinate over 20 million by end of September. He added the government is expecting a higher turnout from over 2,000 operating vaccination sites nationwide, as regions and provinces have expanded their rollouts to essential workers and indigent residents.
Meanwhile, a flight carrying 37 experts from the Republic of Korea landed in Vietnam in the Cam Ranh International Airport in central Can Hoa province on September 18. Now, according to the government website EGP, the flight of the ROK's ASEAN Airlines had been licensed by the Civil Aviation Authority of Vietnam, or CAAC. All the passengers work for a shipbuilding in Vietnam, and this is the first international flight to the airport, which has been open to handle repatriation flights since late April when the fourth COVID wave hit Vietnam. The same day, 30 Korean nationals took the return flight from the airport to Incheon. Cam Ranh Airport has been upgraded at a cost of $17.4 million and is ready for the reopening of international routes to the central province. And as always, thank you, Gila, for keeping me company today here on ASEAN in Focus. See you soon.
You're very much welcome, Alma, and stay updated about the ASEAN region. And thank you for joining us here in ASEAN in Focus. I'm Gila Pablo, your EBC Thailand correspondent, and we live in interesting times.
And we'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.
Mapupuno ng saya, impormasyon at inspirasyon ang hapon mo sa Afternoon Power. Handog sa inyo ng Net25. Sasabay sa inyong tanghalian